In this tutorial, we're going to make a contour line-based digital collage using a color scheme and a subject of your choice. Here's a contour line sample of a pug, for example, that I'm working on. So to start, I'm going to create a new file. We're going to go to the Art and Illustration tab and choose the poster template. I'm going to open Finder up over my Photoshop workspace, and I'm going to find the photo that I want to use for this project. So I'm looking for any animal or human subject that has good lighting, isn't blurry, isn't too far away. I'm going to use this cat. I'm finding my images from Unsplash. They have a good Creative Commons-based license that lets me rework images for commercial or non-commercial use without permission needed from the artist. To start, I'm adding a layer above my photo, calling it outlines. And I'm going to be working with the paintbrush for this first part. So when I go in here and I'm going to locate my paintbrush, I want to go up here to brush settings, and I'm going to open up the general brushes folder and choose the hard round brush. Around size 10 to 20, picking a line color that I want. And I'm going to start outlining the major shapes and components of my photo. I'm going to bring the opacity of that photo down a little bit so I can see my outlines. And I'm being very careful to make sure I'm only outlining on my outline layer. So my goal here is going to be to capture major shapes. I want to create closed shapes or spaces to fill in with texture and other photos for this digital collage. So I'm going to speed things up here a little bit as I draw, and I'm largely following some of the lines or shapes that I see in the photo, but I am trying to chop up these shapes into smaller areas. And here I'm drawing off the shoulders so that I'm connecting the bottom of the cat to the bottom of the page, and I'm just taking lines to chop up the bottom of my animal. I'm also going to want to maybe zoom in and pay attention to some finer details. I wouldn't grab every small detail, so maybe a couple little details here or there, but largely the main idea is to get big shapes. Okay, so now we also need to divide the background around the cat, so I've added some division lines around my subject, and now it is time to start planning our color scheme. To find my color scheme, I'm going to go to adobecolorpicker.com. Under the color wheel section, under color harmony, there are a variety of good high contrast color schemes, including triadic, which I'm looking at here, and I can customize the triadic color scheme that I want. A good high contrast color scheme will have a variety of warm versus cool colors. I'm going to be choosing colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel here. And then once I've found my color scheme, I'm going to go to Spotlight Search and type in Screenshot. And I'm going to choose the Capture Window option and then drag the box around my color palette. And then hit Capture to send a photo of that color palette to my desktop. I can then open Finder up over my workspace and drag and drop the color palette onto my Photoshop file, so I have that as a reference. To find reference images for our collage, we're going to go to unsplash.com and searching for terms that indicate colors in my color scheme, like yellow, magenta, teal. And I'm looking for textural images. So here I'm looking at fluid art or flower petals. I'm going to be using parts of these photos to fill in my digital collage. So really it's the color and the texture that I'm after. I'm going to continue to download a variety of photos that I could use. And then I'm going to open up my Photoshop file and bring in my images by opening up Finder and dragging and dropping each image one at a time into my workspace. So here's a sample of a finished collage to show you how we're going to be placing pieces of these images. Okay, so I'm not actually going to collage this cat right now. I just wanted to use this as a sample for how I'm gathering images and colors. What I'm going to show you is how I'm going to collage that dog that I showed you earlier, this one. I'm going to start by bringing in my photo and rasterizing it, and then I'm going to use the free transform tool or Command T to place the photo where I want the texture to go within a specific shape within my subject. That photo is now placed, so I go back to my outline layer. I'm using the magic wand and I'm holding the Shift key, and I am choosing shapes that aren't next to each other but are areas where I would like to embed this specific texture. When I'm happy with my selections, I go up to the select menu at the top, and I'm going to choose inverse to choose the background around the shapes. And then I'm going to hit the delete key to remove those backgrounds. And now I'm ready to go in and bring in my next photo. Again, I'm using free transform to place it. I'm rasterizing that photo in the image layer, and then I go back to my main outline layer and I continue to use my magic wand while holding the shift key. That's important to choose more shapes where I'm going to put this new texture, and then again using the select menu with the inverse option and hitting my delete key to remove the background. And I just continued with this process, bringing in new textures and shapes and playing around with where I'd like to put them within my drawing. I do have to zoom in if I want to choose small areas with my magic wand, so here you can see me zooming way in to get really little areas. And then I just repeat that step of going to the select menu and choosing the inverse option to choose around those shapes that I want, and then I can delete the background and keep just those areas. And once I have almost all my large shapes filled this way, all that is left is my smaller shapes. Eventually the spaces that are left are just too small to choose, so for these I'm going to bring in a background image that will serve to fill those areas with texture. So here's the one I'm choosing for this piece. This time the process is slightly different. Once I have my image placed, I'm going to select the area around the dog and then delete that or erase that so that I'm leaving the smaller areas filled inside. Now for fine detailing, I'm going to create a brand new layer by hitting the plus sign at the bottom of the layers panel. And then I'm using my paintbrush. If I go into my general brushes, I can choose the hard round brush. And I'm going to zoom in. And working on this detail layer, which is below my outline, I can go in and custom paint over other areas if I want to add a pop of color. I'm going to go in and add the whites to the eyes, color in the pupils. Alright, it's time for our background images. I'm bringing my first photo in that I want to place in my background. I'm purposefully choosing some cooler colors, some blues and greens to contrast the yellow sandy tones in my dog. And I'm just following the same steps as before. Putting the image, where I want it. I'm working with my magic wand to choose the space from my line drawing, and then using the select menu to inverse my selection to choose the background and then delete the space around my selection. I'm being careful to place images that are not the same next to each other. This is on purpose, again, just to kind of create some interest and variety. And that is the process. At the end, I find that this project is fun and it's easy. It's pretty fun trying to just pick out colors and textures to fit within the piece. I had a lot of fun with this piece, trying to go with I ended up going with an ocean sand theme. And the last step I'm doing is just taking my outline layer and adding some FX features to get some 3D dimension. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this process. And please let me know what you think in the comments.